In a royal family known for closed doors and colder silences, this one struck like thunder. Prince Andrew, long part of the private Royal Lodge Christmas tradition, was barred entry. And not by accident. Not by tradition, but by direct order from King Charles III. Witnesses saw it unfold. The gate never opened. The message couldn't be clearer. He's no longer welcome. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. The Royal Lodge has long served as a place of quiet gathering during the holidays, a sanctuary where certain members of the royal family could retreat away from the public gaze. For Andrew, it was more than that. It was one of the last remaining symbols of belonging. After years of scandal, stripped of titles and duties, and removed from public-facing royal life, Royal Lodge was still his home. It was the place he could hold on to tradition, surrounded by the few family rituals that hadn't yet been taken from him. But this year, something shifted. The plans had been made, the cars arranged. Staff alerted, Prince Andrew was expected, as he always had been. But then came the silence, and then came the shutdown. Security staff had been briefed hours before his arrival. Their instructions, according to sources, were unambiguous. Do not admit Prince Andrew under any circumstances. The order came with written backing. There was no room for interpretation. Charles wasn't at the lodge himself. He had remained at Sandringham, where the primary royal Christmas gathering was taking place. But his influence reached far beyond his physical presence. With one directive, he turned his brother away not just from a property, but from a legacy. Onlookers described a surreal scene. A car pulling up, a pause, then tense faces at the gate, a short exchange, and then the car reversing. There was no scene, no confrontation. Just a cold denial and a long drive back into silence. Those who witnessed it say Andrew looked visibly shaken, stunned, even as if this final blow had come from nowhere. But in truth, the writing had been on the wall for months, and now it was etched in frost on the gates of a house that had once felt like safety. As news of the incident leaked, and it did, almost immediately speculation tore through the press. Why now? What triggered Charles to finally make such a visible and irreversible decision? For some, it was long overdue. For others, it was unthinkable. But inside royal circles, the shock was real. Because this wasn't a public event or official function, it was a private holiday. And even in the most fractured families, Christmas is sacred. By turning Andrew away from Royal Lodge, Charles wasn't just making a statement. He was drawing a new line, one not based on scandal alone, but on legacy, loyalty, and the future image of the crown. And in doing so, he fractured something deeper than tradition. He fractured the unspoken code of royal blood. The rule that family, no matter how flawed, would always have a place at the table, especially during the holidays. That rule is gone now, replaced by the quiet click of a locked gate and a car turning around with no place left to go. But this wasn't just about one locked gate, it was about a broken trust, a tarnished legacy, and a king finally drawing the line in the snow. This wasn't a spontaneous act, it was months in the making. Charles's private advisors have warned him, Andrew's lingering presence is a threat to the crown's moral image. But this was personal too. And the decision to lock Andrew out of the one place he felt safe was as calculated as it was symbolic. Behind the carefully managed public image of the monarchy, a quiet war had been unfolding. Ever since Charles ascended the throne, the question of what to do with Andrew loomed like a shadow over every meeting. While the palace had stripped him of public duties, titles, and formal recognition, there was one thing they hadn't yet taken: his presence. And his presence, as Charles was made to believe, was just as dangerous. In private meetings with senior aides, the same theme returned again and again. You cannot build a modern monarchy with yesterday's controversies sitting beside you at the table. Charles listened. And though he remained outwardly cautious, his resolve was building. The pressure wasn't just institutional, it was public. Every time Andrew appeared in a car, walked on palace grounds, or was mentioned alongside royal family gatherings. Backlash followed. Letters to editors, social media outrage. Critical headlines from both UK and international outlets. The world had not forgotten, and it was becoming increasingly clear that forgiveness, at least in the public sphere, was not something Charles could afford to offer. But what pushed the plan from possibility to action was the season, Christmas. A moment so deeply tied to the monarchy's display of unity, grace, and tradition. Charles understood the optics of Royal Lodge. If Andrew appeared, if even a single photograph emerged of him entering or leaving, it would define the headlines, not the king's speech, not the family gathering at Sandringham, but the brother who wouldn't go away. In strategy meetings held weeks before the holidays, Charles was presented with a simple ultimatum. Either make the break now, or risk further scandal in the new year. And then came Camilla. Though rarely seen as the architect, her voice behind closed doors has become stronger than ever. She viewed the decision as essential, even overdue. To her, this wasn't just about the crown, it was about control. Rumours swirled that she was one of the earliest voices to call for Andrew's full exclusion, seeing him as a liability to her husband's reign and to the monarchy's future. Royal Lodge itself was the symbolic target. It had long been a backdrop for family closeness, for unspoken reconciliation. To ban Andrew from there, during Christmas, was to send a signal far louder than any press release. It wasn't about punishing Andrew for past actions, it was about severing his presence from the future. In Charles's mind, it wasn't cruelty, it was necessity.
12%
a message
reduction
to the
in
world
personnel.
that the monarchy had
Camilla's
changed
private
and would no longer shelter reputational threats, no matter their bloodline. But in drawing that line, Charles overlooked one crucial truth. For Andrew, Royal Lodge was more than geography. It was the last sanctuary of identity, the last fragment of a royal life slipping further away. A fortress of memories. And now, a fortress turned against him. But what Charles underestimated was how deeply Andrew saw Royal Lodge not just as property, but as his last symbol of belonging. Those closest to Andrew say he didn't just drive away from Royal Lodge, he spiraled. For a man already stripped of titles, roles, and respect, being turned away from a Christmas gathering was the final humiliation. Behind palace gates, he's crumbling. And now, he's threatening to speak. The weight of rejection fell harder than expected. Royal Lodge was never just a home, it was a shield, a symbol that he still belonged, even if only in silence. But now, that silence has turned against him. After being refused entry at the very gate he once passed through freely, Andrew returned not to a family, not to a welcoming hearth, but to an echoing emptiness. Inside the lodge, staff reportedly found him unrecognizable, angry, distraught, broken. He wasn't just a disgraced duke anymore. He was a man watching the last remnants of his royal identity crumble beneath him. Sources close to the household claim his emotional state deteriorated rapidly in the hours following the lockout. One staff member described a scene that bordered on despair. Andrew pacing endlessly, refusing food, making repeated attempts to contact Charles directly. None of his calls were answered. No replies came. The silence from Sandringham was louder than words, and that silence sent a message even sharper than the closed gate. It wasn't just about distance, it was about finality. In moments of heated frustration, Andrew reportedly floated the idea of going public. Whispers of a tell-all interview, or even a memoir, began to surface inside the lodge. Whether it was real intent or emotional lashing out, no one could be sure. But what was clear was that something in him had shifted. For years, he had endured the slow unraveling of his public life with a quiet, if reluctant, submission. But this time, this public, brutal, and festive season exclusion hit differently. This time, he didn't just feel pushed aside. He felt erased. The sting wasn't just about what had happened. It was about who had done it. Charles, the brother he had once defended, once supported. To be exiled by the institution was painful, but to be rejected by blood was unbearable. Andrew reportedly confided in a longtime aide that they want to write me out of the history books. That line, raw, bitter, and telling, reveals the depth of what he fears. Not disgrace, but deletion. Christmas, once a time of fragile reconciliation, has now become a point of no return. And the isolation cuts even deeper during a season so drenched in family imagery. While the rest of the royals gather in curated elegance at Sandringham, Andrew sits alone in the shadows of what used to be his fortress. And that solitude breeds thoughts dangerous ones. Because when a man feels cornered, when everything has been taken from him, and when the world moves on without asking why, that man becomes unpredictable. And while Andrew mourned a door that wouldn't open, behind other palace walls, a far more ruthless conversation was taking place. She didn't sign the order, but Queen Camilla didn't need to. Behind the scenes, her hand was everywhere. While Charles bore the weight of the decision, Camilla helped shape it, protecting the crown, shielding her family, and ensuring Andrew would never regain a foothold in royal tradition again. Those who understand the inner workings of the monarchy know one truth: nothing is decided in isolation. And in this new royal era, Camilla is not just a consort, she is a force. Her influence within Charles's circle has grown quietly, steadily, and with sharp precision. While the world sees her smiling at state dinners and walking beside the king in graceful silence, inside palace walls, she is one of the most decisive voices shaping the monarchy's future. And in the weeks leading up to Christmas, she was vocal, unwavering, and deeply committed to one goal: keeping Andrew out. This wasn't about pettiness, it was about preservation. Camilla has long held reservations about Andrew's continued proximity to the royal brand. Though never publicly at odds, their private dynamic has reportedly been cold for years. Sources close to the Queen consort say the past resurfaced as Christmas neared, whispers of old slights, tensions dating back to the Queen's earliest days in the family. Camilla, now firmly established, views the monarchy not as a sentimental relic, but as a fragile institution under constant threat. And in her view, Andrew is one of its most dangerous vulnerabilities. Every appearance he makes, every headline he draws, she sees as another crack in the image they've fought to repair since the Queen's passing. But the concerns didn't come from her alone. Camilla's own children, rarely involved in public matters of the crown, are said to have voiced their unease. Conversations held behind closed doors reportedly included stark warnings, not just about the potential backlash of Andrew's presence, but what it signaled about the monarchy's moral compass. The narrative was simple but devastating. If the family accepts Andrew at its table, what message does that send to the world? In the days before Charles issued the final directive, there were private meetings, unrecorded, off-calendar, but deeply consequential. Charles, torn between duty and blood, sought reassurance. Camilla gave him resolve. And some insiders now believe the idea of barring Andrew from Royal Lodge didn't originate with Charles at all, but with her. She never needed to give a direct order. Her influence worked differently, quiet, persuasive, inescapable. Camilla's defenders say she's doing what must be done, guiding the monarchy through treacherous waters, making the decisions that history will judge as brave. But her critics whisper something colder, that her rise has come with an iron grip, and those who pose a risk to her vision are swiftly dealt with. Andrew, stripped and disgraced, became the first public casualty of that vision. Yet Camilla's checkmate may not have gone unnoticed, because while she rearranged the board to protect the crown, another royal watched it unfold with rising fury, someone who doesn't play by their rules, and who won't let this betrayal go unanswered. But even as Camilla moves the palace chessboard, one figure in the royal family isn't playing by their rules, and she's furious about how Andrew was treated. Anne doesn't forget family. And when she found out that Andrew had been blocked, not cautioned or warned, but outright rejected, she erupted. Known for her stoic exterior, Anne confronted palace aides and even Charles himself. Her words, "He's not a stranger, he's our brother." For decades, Princess Anne has carried the reputation of the firm, dutiful royal. No drama, no fuss, no wavering. But underneath that iron discipline is a woman who values loyalty, family, and fairness, sometimes more than she values public perception. And to her, this wasn't just another internal decision, it was betrayal. The moment word reached her that Andrew had been turned away from Royal Lodge, without warning, without a single face-to-face conversation beforehand, something snapped. Not just as a sister, but as someone who had lived through scandal, internal family politics, and the quiet disintegration of royal ties. She saw this for what it was: not an act of discipline, but of abandonment. According to insiders, Anne made an unannounced trip to Windsor within 48 hours of the incident. Not to comfort Andrew, but to confront the system that had chosen to discard him in such a public, deliberate fashion. She demanded explanations, clarity, and accountability. Not everyone was prepared to give it. When she spoke to aides, there was discomfort. When she spoke to Charles, there was silence. And that silence only fueled her fury. The exchange between the siblings was, by all accounts, terse and uncharacteristically heated. Anne reminded the king that tradition has always protected family first, even when the public doesn't. Charles, however, refused to budge. He told her the decision was final, that it had to be done. But to Anne, had to be done felt more like an excuse than a principle. This wasn't about condoning Andrew's past. Anne has never excused what cannot be defended, but she believes in protecting the family from being dismantled by its own hands. She sees the monarchy as a bloodline before it is a brand. And in Andrew's exile, she saw a dangerous precedent, a willingness to exile, erase, and replace rather than reconcile. That, in her mind, is not strength, it's cowardice. Her reaction has rippled across the royal household. Quiet conversations have emerged between cousins, staff, and senior members. Some agree with her, others don't. But no one denies the impact. Anne's stance has created new tension among the ranks cracks in the once unified front that Charles has been desperate to preserve since taking the throne. And while Anne won't lead a rebellion, she won't stay silent either. She's made it clear. She will not watch her family eat itself alive behind a veil of protocol and PR. And so, while the king remains resolute and Camilla stands firm behind him, Anne becomes the unexpected voice of dissent within the palace. One that echoes not only through corridors, but now into the public sphere, because as word of her defense spreads, it's not just the royals who are taking sides. But while the royals bicker behind closed doors, public anger is building, and the media has already chosen a side. When the story broke, so did the internet. Some cheered Charles for taking a hard line, but others, especially older monarchists, saw cruelty in rejecting a brother at Christmas. Has the royal family gone too far, or has it finally shown strength? Within minutes of the first headlines reporting Prince Andrew's exclusion from the Royal Lodge Christmas gathering, the digital storm erupted. The palace had tried to control the optics, but it was too late. Screens across the world lit up with the same image: Andrew, isolated, locked out, and alone. The symbolism was brutal, and the timing couldn't have been more potent. It wasn't a state event. It wasn't a ceremony. It was Christmas, a season of unity. And yet, the royal family had chosen that precise moment to draw its sharpest line. Social media fractured instantly. Some praised Charles's resolve, calling it the final chapter in a necessary reckoning. But others, particularly long-time royalists and traditionalists, didn't see courage. They saw calculated cruelty. Comment threads swelled with debates. Was this an overdue correction of past indulgences, or a public display of coldness by a monarchy that still preaches family values? Older supporters of the crown voiced discomfort. Their argument was simple: no matter the scandal, no matter the disgrace, Christmas, of all times, demands mercy. It's not about the press or the protocols, it's about family. And to them, Charles had crossed a moral line. What was once loyalty had been replaced with image control. Public figures began to weigh in. Commentators, activists, and media personalities took to platforms to debate whether Andrew's exclusion was justice or vengeance in disguise. Online petitions surfaced with dueling narratives, some demanding Andrew's immediate eviction from Royal Lodge altogether, while others pleaded for the king to show compassion and allow his brother the dignity of peace in retirement. One British columnist asked, "If there's no redemption at Christmas, when does it come?" The question struck deep. But it wasn't just Britain reacting. The international press latched onto the story like wildfire. American outlets called it the most brutal royal cut in decades, while European commentators remarked on the monarchy's harsh turn under Charles's rule. Compassion, they argued, had been replaced by calculation. Behind the scenes, palace aides scrambled to contain the backlash. But with every article, every tweet, every trending hashtag, the narrative slipped further from their grip. Yet in the frenzy, one truth resurfaced. The original scandal that shadowed Andrew's fall, his alleged associations, his legal battles, and his withdrawal from public life, was being discussed all over again. The Christmas snub had reopened wounds that many hoped had faded. And instead of closing the chapter, it reignited it. The palace had tried to silence a story, but they had, unintentionally, given it new life. And just when the firm thought the news cycle might pass, a buried document emerges, reigniting questions about inheritance and betrayal. Leaked documents now reveal that Andrew's residency at Royal Lodge was never as secure as he claimed. And with mounting pressure, Charles may be preparing the final blow eviction. But Andrew has a plan of his own, and it involves lawyers, leverage, and legacy. The illusion of permanence has shattered. For years, Andrew insisted that Royal Lodge was his to keep his sanctuary, his entitlement, his final tether to royal status. But behind the grandeur of the estate, legal foundations were far shakier than the public ever knew. Now, internal lease documents have surfaced, and they paint a very different picture. The agreement, originally structured under the reign of Queen Elizabeth II, included clauses tied not only to maintenance and upkeep, but to continued service, relevance, and reputation. And by those measures, Andrew's position is no longer defensible. The leaked paperwork reveals possible breaches, allegedly ignored obligations, questionable use of allocated funds, and a growing list of neglected conditions. Suddenly, the lodge isn't his home, it's a legal vulnerability. Charles, bolstered by public support and emboldened by recent fallout, is reportedly weighing his final move: eviction. Quiet conversations between palace lawyers and estate trustees have already begun. The plan? Transition Royal Lodge to a more suitable royal occupant. Early discussions suggest William or Edward as likely candidates. Both are actively serving, scandal-free and publicly palatable. But Andrew, hearing the whispers, is not going quietly. He's made it clear to those around him if the king tries to remove him, he will fight, and not just in private. Legal teams have already been engaged. Andrew's lawyers argue that the lease, while flexible in royal terms, was granted under the late Queen's blessing and remains legally binding. They insist that, unless proven in breach by formal standards, eviction would constitute reputational targeting, not lawful repossession. It's not just a home, it's the last symbol of status he still controls. And for Andrew, that means it's worth defending with everything he has left. According to one insider, he was heard saying, "They've taken everything but my name and my house. They're not taking that too." But the palace isn't backing down. With every passing day, pressure builds from within to resolve the Royal Lodge question once and for all. To allow Andrew to remain is to prolong the association, a quiet risk the monarchy can no longer afford. And Charles, increasingly determined to reshape the royal image under his reign, seems willing to risk the fallout. But this isn't just a legal conflict, it's a war of symbolism. To remove Andrew from Royal Lodge would be a final, irreversible erasure from the royal map. And that's a humiliation Andrew appears ready to fight tooth and nail to avoid. Now, the press has caught wind. Sympathetic pieces appear beside scathing ones. Aged supporters of the monarchy voice concern, while legal analysts dissect the lease line by line. The public has become the jury, and Andrew, whether victim or villain in their eyes, knows one thing: if he's going down, he's not doing it quietly. But as the lodge becomes a battleground, Andrew's focus shifts from territory to reputation and the comeback no one expected. He was supposed to disappear quietly, but now Andrew is threatening to speak, and not just about his own downfall. Rumors swirl that he's preparing to expose conversations, alliances, and truths the firm never wanted aired. It's no longer about clearing his name, it's about taking others down with him. For years, he was silent, removed from public view, stripped of titles, left to linger in the margins of royal life. But the events of this Christmas have reawakened something dangerous in Prince Andrew, a sense that if he no longer has protection, he no longer has to protect anyone else. Sources close to him claim that he has kept detailed personal records, handwritten journals, emails, and transcripts of private conversations, documents that could rip open the tightly sealed world of royal decision-making. These aren't just reflections, they are his insurance, his version of events, and they don't paint a flattering picture of the family that cast him out. What he's sitting on could be catastrophic. Insiders believe some of the most volatile content revolves around the final months of Queen Elizabeth II's reign. Private decisions, power shifts, and conversations that were never meant to reach the public ear. Whispers suggest Andrew holds information about Charles's behind-the-scenes maneuvering during that time, moves that may have influenced the Queen's stance on succession, trust, and who ultimately got to shape the monarchy's future in her final days. And that's just the beginning. Equally explosive are the tensions that have long existed between Andrew and William. While the public image has been carefully maintained, sources reveal that the two have had an icy relationship for years, worsened by disputes over public image, entitlement, and inheritance. Andrew has allegedly told confidants that William was always waiting for him to fall, and that certain strategic leaks to the press may have come from corners of the palace much closer to the Prince of Wales than anyone previously imagined. Then there are the secret meetings, quiet conversations between Andrew and other non-working royals who feel just as discarded. Allegedly, talks have taken place behind the palace's back, with ideas floated about forming a collective statement, or worse, a coordinated public re-emergence. The very idea terrifies the senior firm, because if Andrew goes rogue, it might embolden others who've remained quiet under pressure, especially those with grievances and nothing left to lose. Andrew, in his most private moments, has reportedly called himself a scapegoat, and while few will argue his fall wasn't of his own making, there's a new narrative emerging that he wasn't the only one making mistakes, just the only one punished for them. In that space of perceived injustice, a dangerous momentum is building, one that could change the course of how the public views not just Andrew, but the royal institution itself. The question now is not whether Andrew will speak. The question is when, and how much. Because if he does, and if the materials are as damning as suggested, he might take the entire House of Windsor down with him. It won't be an act of redemption, it'll be retribution. And while threats swirl and alliances fracture, a single holiday gathering has now triggered a war that may redefine the royal family's future. The Royal Lodge stood still this Christmas, its doors locked, its silence louder than any carol. What was once a symbol of royal warmth has become a line in the sand. Andrew is out, Charles is resolute, and the family is more divided than ever. One decision, one holiday, a monarchy forever changed. What began as a single act denying Andrew entry into Royal Lodge has erupted into a seismic shift that no one in the royal family can ignore. The fallout has been swift and merciless. Within hours of Andrew's exclusion, the royal household began to splinter not in public, but in private, in whispers behind closed doors, in family members who no longer speak, and in staff too afraid to admit where their loyalty lies. The damage is done, and it runs deeper than protocol or image. It cuts to the very foundation of what this family claims to represent. While the public devours every update, royal aides now find themselves in uncharted territory. They've managed crises before, but this is different. This isn't a scandal born from press leaks or outsiders. This is a fracture from within, a break authored by the king himself. And now, they must strategize for the consequences of a monarchy that may have sacrificed stability for symbolism. The palace remains silent, refusing to clarify, refusing to comment. But behind that silence, aides are scrambling, desperately trying to predict what happens next. Because the truth is, no one knows how far Andrew is willing to go, or who might follow him. And while the public narrative centers around justice and accountability, a more complicated debate brews beneath the surface. Has the royal family become too ruthless? Has tradition lost its soul in the pursuit of modern optics? For every voice praising Charles's firm hand, another cries for compassion, forgiveness. The idea that family should transcend even the darkest chapters. But that idea, it seems, is no longer part of this new royal era. In its place stands cold precision. No more sentiment, no more shielding, only consequence.
Camilla's pride.
The emotional toll is impossible to quantify. Relationships that once endured scandal, divorce, and public disgrace are now shattering over a locked gate. And as each royal member chooses a side, silently or otherwise, the cracks widen. What once stood as an immovable symbol of unity now feels fragile, vulnerable, even temporary. Royal Lodge, once a setting for holiday traditions, is now a monument to exclusion. Its silence is no longer sacred, it's ominous. And so, the firm moves forward, but without illusion. They've crossed a line that can't be uncrossed. This wasn't a minor decision. It was a declaration. A monarchy unafraid to sacrifice one of its own. And in doing so, it has revealed just how much has changed since the Queen's passing, and how much more is still at risk. Let me know when you're ready for the full 4500 word script. This is only the beginning of the storm. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in the next one.